Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking some source material that literally turns our oldest religious and historical assumptions completely upside down. We're looking at ancient texts that ask a seriously paradigm-shifting question. What if the external God we've been taught about for centuries is actually just a secondary being?
Okay, let's dive right into this. The material we're exploring today centers around a set of buried Gnostic teachings that present a staggering idea. Think about it. What if the cosmic authority that humanity has been taught to fear, appease, and petition isn't actually the ultimate reality? What if there's something older, deeper, and fundamentally different, a source that doesn't demand anything from you, simply because it already is you?
Section 1. The God of the Church. So, institutional religion typically presents us with a very specific framework, right? In this traditional view, God is an external creator who governs the material world. This figure demands a relationship structured around worship, prayer, rituals, and, confession. But most importantly, this God is positioned as existing externally, a being high above you. But a massive crack in this foundational view was actually revealed with the 1945 discovery of ancient texts at Nag Hammadi in Egypt. Just look at this absolute bombshell of a quote from a text called the Apocryphon of John. The creator God of this world straight up states, "I am a jealous God, and there is no other God beside me."
Now, the ancient Gnostic text responds to that with a brilliant logical rebuttal. Why on earth would the only God need to say there's no other God beside him? I mean, if you're the only one in the room, you don't usually walk around shouting about it, do you? The text argues that he's actually trying to convince himself and his followers of something that simply isn't true.
Moving on to Section 2. Demiurge versus the monad.
First up, we have the Demiurge. The sources define the Demiurge as the craftsman and creator of the material world. But here's the absolutely crucial nuance. In these texts, the Demiurge isn't some cartoonishly evil villain. Instead, he's a being who genuinely believes he's the highest reality. He creates and governs while operating under a massive misapprehension of his own nature, profoundly ignorant of what actually lies above him.
And then we have what the texts call the monad. This is described as the true God, an invisible spirit or pure light that is entirely beyond description or naming. Unlike the Demiurge, the monad doesn't create in a mechanical sense, it emanates. The texts state that it fundamentally surpasses divinity. That basically means calling the monad God in the traditional sense is almost misleading because it operates on a completely different frequency altogether.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is when we put these concepts side by side, the contrast is just staggering. On one side, the church God is external, demands worship, and acts as a mechanical creator. On the flip side, the monad is internal, demands absolutely nothing, and exists as pure emanation. It's literally a complete inversion of traditional religion.
Section 3. The historical cover-up.
Take a look at how systematic this suppression was. These Gnostic texts were originally composed between the 1st and 3rd centuries, but by 180 CE, early church fathers like Irenaeus of Lyon were writing with intense urgency to dismantle these specific communities. And by the 4th century, Rome enforced strict doctrinal uniformity. Possessing these texts became physically dangerous, forcing monks to literally bury them in the desert where they sat in total darkness until 1945.
1600. That is the exact number of years these texts were erased from human history. Think about the staggering reality of that number for a second. That's roughly 60 to 70 generations of human beings, where this alternative cosmology simply did not exist as a live option. The only available concept of the divine was an external authority.
So the crucial point is, why were they suppressed? Well, it comes down to control. You simply cannot put a collection plate in front of someone's internal awakening. An unmediated, direct connection to the divine requires no priest, no intermediary, and critically, it cannot be monetized.
This brings us to Section 4, the wave and the ocean.
The Gospel of Truth, which is one of the discovered texts, beautifully describes ordinary existence before recognition as a kind of fog, a deep forgetting. It sets up this idea that what we need isn't more rules, but a massive conceptual breakthrough. Gnosis, which translates to knowledge, is described as the exact moment that fog finally lifts.
And this brilliantly illustrates the point. To understand this, just imagine the ocean, and then imagine a wave. The wave has form and movement, sure, but every single particle of that wave is inherently ocean water. The wave is not separate from the ocean. The distinction is merely one of temporary form, not substance.
In this analogy, the Gnostic texts claim that human beings are the wave. We're in a temporary material form created by the Demiurge.
But within us is the ocean, the monad, referred to in the text as the divine spark or pneuma. This spark is something the Demiurge did not create, cannot account for, and absolutely cannot control. According to the text, it is your deepest fundamental nature.
Section 5. Direct recognition and gnosis.
The texts, particularly the Gospel of Philip, make a very precise distinction here. There is a massive difference between worshiping a God constructed from the outside in, where you try to reach an external God through accumulated correct behaviors, and knowing the source from the inside out, where you uncover the divine simply by moving inward.
Check out this startling quote from the trimorphic Protanua. It reads, "I am the voice that appeared through my thought. I am the one called the thought of the invisible one." Notice the shift in register here. This isn't some booming authority speaking down from the clouds. This is a divine feminine voice speaking from the first person, announcing itself as something already present right within you.
The sources make it super clear that true gnosis isn't just about getting a library card for new spiritual concepts or memorizing doctrine. It's a direct, internal recognition. It closes the gap between the human and the divine. It's the profound acknowledgement that the divine isn't up in the sky, it's the very ground you're already standing on, causing all external authority to just evaporate.
So, how is this actually achieved? Well, the texts point toward a very practical entry point, a lived inquiry into the nature of attention itself. It starts by noticing what you're paying attention to, then radically shifting your focus away from the objects of your attention and onto the awareness itself. It acts as a sort of crack in ordinary experience.
The ultimate takeaway of this hidden history is profound. Systems of institutional control require your continued sense of spiritual inadequacy to remain relevant. But the true Gnostic source, the monad, requires absolutely nothing from you because it's not separate from you. You can't petition the ground you're already standing on, you can only recognize it. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take with you today. Stop asking, "What am I aware of?" and instead ask yourself, "Who is aware?" Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking, and I'll see you next time.